My job, if you call it that, involves me, I'm pleased to say, in a great deal of travelling. And during the course of those travels, I have been struck by the ever-growing number of Range Rovers that I see pounding around all over the country. And I've also noticed Range Rover owners. They seem to be different from the rest of us. Perhaps it's because they're sitting a bit higher than the rest of the world, but they always seem to be very pleased with themselves and with their vehicles. Now, I've always been interested in cars, so I thought I'd find out for myself what it is about a Range Rover that encourages such undying affection. So I asked a Range Rover owner, a fellow called Captain Mark Phillips.
I first had a Range Rover in 1974, just after we got married. And now I'm the proud owner of a four-door Range Rover, which is a totally different beast altogether from the early ones. I think the four-door she's quicker, she handles much better, she's a lot quieter, and I think probably most important of all, she's a lot more economical. It's a vehicle that you can do so many things with. I mean, I now drive a Range Rover about 25,000 miles a year, and obviously the majority of that mileage is on a motorway, and it's a marvellous vehicle on the motorway in that it cruises very happily at 70 miles an hour, and it is very easy and relaxed driving. Some of it will be in the towns or in London or whatever, and in London it's a marvellous vehicle to drive because you've got such good visibility that you can see and anticipate things that are going to happen in traffic, and also because you're slightly larger than some of the surrounding vehicles, they tend to give way, and it makes your passage through heavy traffic that much easier. I've always had a Range Rover, and therefore when I entered into my sponsorship arrangement, it was a very comfortable association. It was a vehicle that I could identify with very easily because I have so many uses for it. Since I've been involved with the company, it's done nothing but heighten my respect for the vehicle. In fact, when we eventually go our separate ways and the sponsorship deal comes to an end, I very much hope to still continue to be the proud owner of a Range Rover.
Well, after that glowing testimonial, I decided to have a close look for myself, and not being a pioneer stock, I decided to put my life into a pair of safe hands, someone who really knows, how to handle a motor car. So I invited the former world champion Formula One driver, James Hunt. Now, he's just arrived at twice the speed of sound, so I'm not quite sure it was one of my greatest ideas. But James, it's very nice of you to come, and I must say, first of all, I hope we're not going to leave the ground during this exercise.
Well, that I can't promise, but if we are going to leave it, then I think you're probably in the safest thing that's going. Name me any car that's safer than the Range Rover.
Can't think of one at the moment. Anyway, let's look at this one, shall we? It's got a bit of style, isn't it?
Yes, it has. And it's still a hand-built car, but in fact it's built now in one of the most modern factories in Europe. Range Rover put that together, which is a great advantage for the customer because it now means that you don't have a 3-year wait list, so you can order yours as soon as you're ready.
Well, I'm not quite ready because I want to have a closer look. Now, where do they keep the engine on this one?
Well, surprisingly enough, the engine's at the front.
Right, so here it is spread out before me. Can you describe what I'm seeing?
Well, it's a V8 engine, as you can see. It's a big lump of power, but it's not that heavy. It's an alloy block and everything, and it's got fairly high compression. It's low lift cams, which are all part of the modifications to improve the fuel efficiency and the performance of it. It is in fact the tried and tested Rover V8 engine that they've been running for years, but they've updated it and modified it now.
Well, it's a good pedigree, but it is a very big vehicle, isn't it?
Well, it looks big because it's so tall, but it's actually a good deal shorter than the Volvo Estate, for example. And the extra height does give you a tremendous advantage from the visibility point of view. But I'll show you that later. Right, now this is the new model, and it's 4 doors. Well, 5 if you include this rear door here.
God, what's that?
That's Oscar, my Alsatian.
He looks more like a bear.
Well, there'd still be plenty of room for him if he was. In fact, with the back seat folded flat, I could even get some of his children in.
Yeah, well, I shouldn't bother, thanks so much. I'll take your word for it, James. What about fuel consumption? The car, I mean.
Well, I wouldn't recommend the figures from the way I drive.
No, but I mean when an ordinary human being is behind the wheel.
Well, with the major improvements that they've done on the latest model, you've got a 25% improvement in fuel efficiency. And in fact, being four-wheel drive all the time, you also get a marginal improvement on tyre wear.
Ah, no, I never suspected that. Well, back to the safety angle, it is renowned for that. But, I mean, just how safe is it?
Well, it's one of the few remaining cars on the road to be built with a good old-fashioned chassis.
Like a big, strong backbone.
Exactly. It simply makes the whole vehicle much stronger, therefore gives maximum protection to the driver and passengers.
Yes, well, that's good news. So obviously a great deal of thought has gone into the vehicle.
Yes, like dual servo-assisted brakes all round, with emergency braking on the front wheels, and a special gadget to prevent the rear wheels locking up.
Right, well, I think I've built up enough confidence for a gentle spin. Shall we have a go?
Certainly.
Right, James, we were talking earlier about the size of the vehicle being an important safety factor.
Yes. You see, that extra height, as you can see, gives you all-round visibility.
Yeah.
In a Range Rover, you can react to the brake lights of cars 4 or 5 in front, because you can look through the cars, you're looking down on everybody, whereas in an ordinary car, the guy in front can only react to the set of lights in front of him.
Right, let's have a look round. I must say the interior isn't as Spartan as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, well, that's a bit of a myth. You see, just because a Range Rover is capable of taking rough going with ease, doesn't mean it's got to look like the back end of a fairground dodgem. See here, all the instruments are beautifully laid out, right here where you need them.
Yeah, and the seats are quite comfortable, aren't they?
Yep, well, they're orthopaedically designed. That's so you can sit in them for hours and hours and be as comfortable when you get out as when you got in. And, in fact, I believe they've won some awards for that.
Righto, then, let's away.
Well, clunk click first, Michael.
Yes, she only does beat me to it. Now, I thought it would sound a bit like a Centurion tank going at full blast.
No, well, on the new model, they've redone all the soundproofing and put a quieter gearbox on it as well.
What about the gear system? I thought it would be a bit more complicated than this, James. I mean, where's all the gubbins for the four-wheel changeover?
There isn't one. Range Rover's a permanent four-wheel drive vehicle. After all, you can't rely on the British weather, can you? And four-wheel drive gives you more grip in the wet and snow. In fact, a lot of my friends swear by them for ski trips.
Okay, I accept the gears are quite nifty, James, but I must tell you that after a lot of years of motoring, I do prefer automatic.
Well, if you can bear to wait till August, you'll be able to.
You mean?
Shh. It's a secret.
Right, remember, James, this is not Le Mans.
Relax, Michael. I say I've no intention of hurting me.
I am a twitchy passenger, I'm sorry. Anyway, how is the steering? A bit heavy, I expect.
No, they've got power-assisted steering on all Range Rovers.
That's funny, because I always had the impression that you'd need to do a bit of weightlifting before you could handle one of these beasts.
No, look, the steering is all one-finger stuff. In fact, it's very light indeed. Nicky Lauder told me only the other day that his Mrs. Marlena prefers driving his Range Rover to the Mercedes. And Lady Tavistock had a few kind words to say too.
The joy of a Range Rover is that you really don't ever need another car. There is nothing you cannot do in your Range Rover. I must say I resisted it a little at the beginning because I felt it had no power steering in those days. And it was much more Spartan than it is today. But now I really would be very, very unhappy if we didn't have a Range Rover. It's the car I really take nearly everywhere. So it can go shopping, it can pull a trailer, it can carry furniture, it can pick up children's trunks from school. It really can do anything. You don't have to think, can it do it? It can do it. And it can go up the side of a mountain as well. You see a lot of women driving them. And you see a lot of women driving them in London. And that's the one place that I suppose they might have felt at the beginning would be somewhere they couldn't take it. But it's probably one of the easiest cars to park. Well, it just performs. It does anything.
Well, I think the lady's right, James. It isn't a bone shaker, is it?
No, and it's got bags of space. But a lot of the comfort's down to the Range Rover suspension.
Mm-hmm.
Well, basically, it's got huge, great coil springs that have got a very long travel, and that gives you plenty of ground clearance and a very comfortable ride.
Now, suppose I wanted to tow something heavy, like a boat. How does it cope with that?
Well, that's why it's got this self-leveling suspension system. It'll tow up to 4 tons with no trouble at all.
Yeah, well, I don't think I want to tow anything as heavy as that.
No, but when a lorry needs shifting off the M1, 9 times out of 10, it's a police Range Rover that shifts it. When they need to get a couple of lanes open in a hurry, then they have to use the Range Rover. It's the ideal vehicle for the job.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yes, and as I said earlier, you can never predict the weather. Take last winter, for example. If you were a doctor on call, or even a DJ, you couldn't afford to get stuck, and in a Range Rover, you wouldn't be.
Yes, it's a good, strong vehicle, but it doesn't exactly zip along like a BMW or a Jaguar, does it?
Well, it doesn't do badly. It's got a top speed of over 95 miles an hour, and you're not supposed to do more than 70 anyway.
Oh, really?
No, whilst a BMW or a Jag will do 120 or more, I'll bet you'll find it's a Range Rover with a blue light on top that's going to haul them in and tell them.
OK, so the Range Rover's performance on the road is fine, but have all these improvements taken anything away from its off-road performance?
Well, let's go and find out.
Well, you could just tell me, of course.
Stop panicking, Michael. It's going to be a bit of a laugh.
But I just have this fear of being upside down in a ploughed field, you see.
Well, I think I can probably cure that for you.
Right, so we're approaching a huge mound.
Yeah. A bit of hill climbing here.
What sort of gradient is this, then?
Oh, this is nothing. We'll show you a proper gradient in a minute. Don't you worry about that.
You call this nothing, do you?
If you're impressed with that, well, that's...
I'm
see the
easily
gradient-
impressed, but it's quite steep.
See the gradient than you get on any normal road.
Yes, most roads aren't quite as overgrown as it. Oh, don't go down there, for God's sake. No, please. I'm just going to close my eyes for a little while. Good. That was extraordinary. That was vertical.
It is stunning, isn't it? Incredible.
I thought you were kidding.
I couldn't believe it when I first saw that.
There can't be anything more hairy than that, can there?
Yeah, I mean, that is a seriously steep slope.
That was extraordinary. I did open my eyes in the end, and I'm very proud of myself.
When they demonstrated that to me, I couldn't believe it.
Right, so we're going back up the other side of this mound, sort of in reverse to the way we came. Now we're reaching the top. You're not going to do just that again, are you? Because
Why not?
I am
Why
convinced. What are we doing now? Oh, not another sheer drop. There's a tree at the bottom there, James. Are you sure about this? Here we go. Here we go, straight. Here we go. Oh! Oh! People pay money for this kind of thrill, don't they?
Do you want to try going up it?
Is that safe? No, I don't think we'll try going up it. You can, but I think I'll stay down here.
You better bail out fast.
We're going up. We're going up. We're going up. Have we made it?
It's impressive, isn't it? I mean, because it does, as I say, it went up that. It's
Well,
just sailed up that.
It's
You may
quite
have to go up.
unbelievable. James, I've got to admit it, I am impressed with this Range Rover, and I really didn't think it was my kind of motor.
Well, neither did Robin Knox-Johnston.
My problem is that I spend a lot of time rushing from one location to another to go racing in my boat, and I can be having to go down onto a beach one day or charging across some fairly rough roads another time, and I also need to carry quite a lot of equipment around and sometimes quite a lot of crew. And I find that the Range Rover enables me to drive long distances on motorways in a fair degree of comfort, but it's also got the carrying capacity, and of course that four-wheel drive is very useful if you're going across a sandy beach. The difference between the last Range Rover I had, which was in 1976, and the latest model is quite dramatic. The new one's so much quieter and more comfortable, and having driven all the way across France in one recently, I came out of it feeling very fresh, whereas before I'd have been slightly rattled. The turning circle beats my dearly beloved MG, and altogether they've made so many little modifications here and there that it's a completely different vehicle. I'm getting 20 miles to a gallon now instead of about 15. It's much easier to drive. I love the all-round vision.
Well, lots of famous people are willing to offer a testimonial, but I suppose this car really must appeal to anyone in the market for a quality car.
Yeah, hence the growing number of proud owners to which you referred earlier. Still, Michael, people driving right round the clock. Some of them even do 2 laps.
Of course, until you've actually had a go, it's very easy to be put off by sort of preconceived ideas, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why they try and encourage people to take a test drive with their local dealer. Alan Stewart took one, and he was convinced.
Visibility in traffic is superb, and you can be overtaking quite safely in small country roads where the car that you are overtaking think you are completely mad, but they do not know that you can see 1.5 miles further than they can over the hedges. I think my total mileage with Range Rovers now is somewhere in the region of 350,000 miles. Something that does amaze me was the tyre life. I've had 45,000 miles out of a set of tyres. I find that my local garage can service and maintain the vehicle very well indeed, and I think that's a big thing. If you're in a country area, you don't particularly want to be going 40 or 50 miles to get to a town to get the thing looked after efficiently, and our local garage down here are absolutely first class with it. A lot of people think that a Range Rover is just a country car, but I completely disagree, because the Range Rover, I think, especially for winter driving in towns, It's a very safe car indeed. And sometimes before the gritters are out in the morning, you see queues of cars, everybody trying to get to work, completely stranded. And if there's a space at all, the Range Rover will go through and past everything without any problems at all. I've had 6, and I now have the 4-door, and I'm very pleased with it.
Well, Mike, you're in the driving seat now. How does it feel?
Sorry, I haven't got time to discuss it now.
Well, hang on, Mike. Oh, well, that's always the way. Once they've been in a Range Rover, they seem to be converted. And if you're in the market for a luxury saloon with a hell of a lot of versatility, you at least owe it to yourself to go down to your dealer and test drive a Range Rover. At least then you'll know what you're missing.